If you're trying to film your own hunts, but you have no idea what to say to the camera, I'm going to teach you the 3 things that you should cover every time you talk to the camera during a hunt. But first, I just found a stud buck, so I'm going to show you guys this buck, and I have 3 trail cameras to set up today. So I'll take you along, teach you as we go, and set up these cameras. This buck's actually a pretty sweet buck. He's all by himself. I think it's a buck that I hunted last year. If it is, he's going to be a giant. But I don't know exactly if it is yet. It's hard to tell. It's actually it's mid-June right now, so there's still a lot of growth happening with these deer. But I've seen a ton of elk too, lots of cows, and hoping to find maybe another buck or 2. But if not, we're going to throw some trail cameras up in this area because it's a really good spot where there's not a ton of deer, but chances are if you find a deer, it's going to be a decent buck. And we found a buck, and it is a decent buck. I have no clue what it's going to grow into, but he's a pretty sweet buck. So I'm going to keep watching this buck for a little bit here, glass for maybe another hour this morning, and then go hike around and set up some of these trail cameras. So the 3 things you want to cover in every single interview you do with the camera is past, present, and future. So it sounds simple, but those are 3 huge things that a lot of people miss when they're filming themselves or filming other people, because if you miss one of those elements, especially past and future, it's a lot harder to tell the story when you go to edit your film and you're trying to put all the pieces together. You're going to be missing little pieces here and there about what's going on. So I'll give you some examples of that. First of all, so the past. So if you ever listen to me or anyone do an interview, a lot of times the first thing I start out with is what did I just do from the last time that I recorded a video to right now when I'm recording the video. So an example would be we just let's see, we packed our bags this morning and hiked up the hill to the glassing knob. So that's a short example, but it's a good one to where you're talking about what has happened. You're talking about the past. Another thing that people overlook is how often they need to do interviews with the camera or updates, because you do need to do it quite a bit. Basically, the rule of thumb is anytime an event happens or something changes in the hunt, do a camera interview, because it's better to have a bunch of interviews that you never use than to not have enough interviews to tell the whole story. So I'll do interviews every time I move locations, I spot an animal, or if I've just been sitting on a glassing knob for a handful of hours, I'll do an interview just giving an update on how things are going, even if I'm not seeing anything. Because you want to just make sure you're covering your bases when you're talking to the camera. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that guys make when they're trying to make hunt films, is that they don't film enough. And they don't film enough of themselves talking. And I don't mean just talking about anything, but talking about things that really matter for the film to come together. So I'm just saying, talking about the past, the present, the future, the things that matter. And then of course, talk about whatever else you want. It's your film. Show your personality. Show what you want to show in your video. But don't go overboard, and also make sure you're covering everything you need to cover during your hunt. Okay, we just got to the first spot for a trail camera. I'm gonna stick it on this tree right here. Here's the view that we'll get. Something like that. So, gonna throw up. This one is a 3.0X from Reveal. Been using the Pros and the X's, and they're both great, honestly. The nice thing about the Pros is it has a screen, so you can like kind of get a view of what the camera's seeing. But with the X, I mean, I'm setting it up as a cellular camera, so I can just see on my phone what it's gonna look like. So I'm gonna throw it up real quick. This is a really good spot, really good trail. Lots of tracks on it so far. Lots of deer and elk tracks. I can't tell if they're like buck tracks, but that's a good sign. So, and I know bucks live in here in October because I've seen them. I don't know how many bucks live in here during this time of year. This is like summertime, so it'll be fun to see. And then over this knob, I'm gonna throw another camera, and I got one more. I'm gonna find a spot to put one. All right, we got this camera set up right there. So now we got to go to the next spot and set up the next camera. So the second part about talking to the camera, filming your hunts, is you want to cover the present. So what's happening in the moment. So a good example that leads off of the last example is, all right, like we're sitting here right now glassing. This is what we've seen, something like that. It doesn't have to be super long. It can be as long as you need it to be to talk about what you're doing at the moment. So that one's definitely obviously important, and you want to kind of show that too. Get some footage of you doing the thing, whether it's glassing, whether you're hiking, whether you're making food, whatever it is. And that's a good point for all three of these, is get footage of each to have B-roll. So that way when you start talking about them, you have something to overlay the what you're talking about. So that's the second tip. We're gonna go throw up this next camera, and then I'll give you guys the third one. All right, we got the second camera set up right here. I've got it on the tree, and what we're looking at is like a deer bed. There's a trail coming in over here, and there's a lot of deer scrapes around here. So I think it's a good spot to catch some bucks. In here, there's kind of a trail going up behind me, so we'll see. But anyways, we got one more to set up, so we're gonna cruise around. I don't know exactly where I want to put it, but I want to throw it up somewhere in here, just to have a couple different spots in case there is a buck living in here. I just want to know what's in here, so that's the plan. Gonna kind of cruise through here, find some trails or something, and throw it up there. All right, we got the last camera set up right here on this trail coming down the ridge. So I think it's a good spot. The reason I chose this spot is just on this other side, I've seen bucks feeding out in that clearing before. So this backside is a lot more timbered, and there's some trails and beds in here, so I thought it might be a good spot. So that's what we got. As you can see, like, it's pretty steep, but there's these like flat benches that the deer and the elk love to bed in. So we'll see how that stuff goes. I'll make some videos in the future on what I find and all that stuff. Keep you guys in the loop on that. But we got to cover this last camera tip. The last thing you want to cover when you're filming your hunts is the future. So what's happening? What are you gonna do in the future? So an example, kind of leading up off of our last ones, is like, all right, we're gonna sit here and glass for a couple hours and see if we see anything. Or maybe it's like, all right, we're done glassing. We're gonna head down the hill right now, get back to camp, get some sleep, something like that. Just giving some context of what your plan is next. And obviously it's hunting, so your plan might not be, you might not go exactly to plan, but at least you put it out there. And that way, if something does kind of go crazy, you have, it's kind of cool to see, like, all right, this is what we planned on doing. This is what actually ended up happening. We found this buck, or we didn't find anything, so we came to a different spot, whatever. As long as you're keeping those consistent updates, like I talked about earlier, the film's gonna flow and it's gonna work really good. And you're at least gonna have enough content and footage to make a consistent story. So, oh man, I'm like out of breath hiking up this hill. But anyways, guys, that pretty much wraps up the video. One other thing I did want to say though is you can film as much or as little as you want. You can talk as much or as little as you want. You can always cut things out if you decide that you don't want to have them later in the film. So just keep that in mind. You can talk as much as you want, and no one's gonna see the footage that you cut out. So even if it's bad or you messed up or something, just start over. Do it again. I can't tell you how many times. Even still, like, I'll go to record a video and I'm like, I did not like what I said there, so I just pause and start over again. Like, happens almost every time I record a video. I end up doing that. So that's just some advice for you guys filming hunts, how to talk to the camera. I hope it helps. If it does, let me know in the comments. If you're trying to film your own hunt, drop a comment too. And if you have one that you're working on and posted, let me know and I'll watch it. If you want some feedback, I'd be happy to give feedback. Sometimes I don't spend a ton of time watching hunting content, so I don't see a lot of the films that get put out there. I only watch like a select handful. But anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go. I got a long ways to get back to the truck, and I gotta get back for some stuff this afternoon. So we're gonna run out of here. I'll let you know how these cameras go over the next few months. Hopefully we find something good on them. Maybe that buck that we saw up top drop down into some of this country. Who knows? But thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.